Without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker. Andreas Schwabe is a serial entrepreneur in the media space. You may have known him from being co-founder of Earth TV back in the day. He was also an MD at Bertelsmann Group, a sales director at ProSieben Sat.1. And in 2007, he founded a company called Booming, a company that focused on performance marketing. Now, that company merged with a Danish top 5 agency, Blackwood 7, in 2015. And Herr Schwabe is now a CEO and partner of the German branch of Blackwood 7. And this presentation, I had an early preview of it, and it's fascinating. So your attention to it and start getting your questions ready. Herr Schwabe.
Thank you very much. Oh, that's fun. I'm just keeping this headset on to control whether my voice really arrives wherever you're sitting now, but I think I can take it off now. And this is, thank you very much for the introduction. Yeah, this is not so much about big data as it says in the title, even though, and I'm very happy you're all here, because having two of those buzzwords in a description for a presentation, having big data in the media industry, that's something, but as it was mentioned in the introduction, it sounded more like big data than it will actually be, because this is more about transformation in the media planning industry that I'll be talking about for the next couple of minutes. And just to get back to where I come from, and it's I started this agency 9 years ago. I have about 20 years in history in the media industry in general. So this is what Blackwood 7 now does, really the future of what will happen in media planning. And that's also what makes me get up every morning, and why we changed the agency I started 9 years ago into Blackwood 7, and now we're having a kind of worldwide rollout with Blackwood 7. And this is all about artificial intelligence. And that's maybe also why you are here. Artificial intelligence is what really matters the most at the moment. Not only since Google now has beaten the world champion Lee in Go, for example. That was one very impressive example of what you could do with artificial intelligence in any kind of task that you try to fulfill. And what we are doing is exactly that, and we're trying to do it, the clicker, we're trying to do it in the media space. So when we got started 6 months ago in Germany, it was quite interesting, because we just had to mention transparency, and suddenly all the press, all the media press, W&V in Germany, Horizont, all those that really are focusing on the media, they were suddenly giving us huge articles. And I wasn't aware of that would really happen that quickly by just mentioning transparency in the media space as a media agency. And so we were wondering what's going on in that market, so that purely by having transparency and data-driven planning aspects in the concept, this would be something where the whole industry would jump on very quickly. So we had huge awareness in the whole space, and that helped us a lot over the last couple of months that we were in the market. But just to have something more safe, more honest, and even more effective, and that's the key point of what we're trying to achieve, is we really want to bring artificial intelligence into the planning part to have more effective media at the end. And that's what we're working on, and that's what we started with. And we recently just got our first huge client for the German market, so that helps us a lot in getting credibility, which is Volkswagen Group. So we do optimize on the whole Volkswagen Germany budget starting from April, so next month. And this is something that helped us roll out the full story, because suddenly we really have the credibility, because there's a lot of skepticism in the whole industry about what you could really do with artificial intelligence in media planning. So every one of those big network agencies that are of course mostly handling those budgets that we are looking at, they are trying to kill the monster. It's a little like Frankenstein's monster that we have awakened in the industry with this call for transparency. And this is one of the key products we're working on. So yeah, over the last couple of weeks, we've been touring around with all the big budgets that are out there and trying to explain what this is all about. And the big disruption in the industry comes because the media planning agencies have been quite static over the last months. Of course, there's been a lot of developments in programmatic buying and in all kinds of planning tools. But when we see about how the media budgets are really distributed, then there's so much Excel sheets still involved, and that's what we want to change. We really want to go into the planning part and take a full look on everything that's done and how the budgets are split among the various channels. And the networks, and I think they've been so static because they're just too big to fail. Everybody thought this can't be a market where you could ever go to and that you could attack with a new approach, a data-driven approach, even though data-driven, of course, is getting more and more vibrant in the market. But it's not only about digital, and that's very important for everyone. So what we are doing is applying big data and artificial intelligence not only in the digital space. Digital, of course, there's a lot of programmatic buying out there. There's a lot of digital optimization everywhere. Since Google started many years ago, now with Facebook. But this is also about the classic media that we are working on. And that's what makes it also so fantastic. I'm not sure whether there's mainly publishers here, I guess. It's so from the print industry also. And this is one of the very important parts that we are really also looking into the effectiveness of print media. And the outcome of many of our clients that we work with is that print, in many cases, even more effective than we thought it was, because we can suddenly measure the effect, the cause and effect of all media, and which is not only digital, but also the other parts. What happened until now with many, when you go to a media agency, actually, then often there's of course a lot of statistics involved. They do a lot of measurement. I had this quick chat with Duncan, who had the opening keynote this morning, yesterday, and he also said about purely the measurement of print, for example, that they found out the normal readership is triple of what actually is in most of the statistics, because there's a more intense usage of all that print media. But the whole backbone of the statistics that are used within the media agencies just to qualify and quantify the effectiveness of media, that's where it starts with the whole shell game, where the agency comes and says, okay, here's your money, where's the effect? And suddenly you're completely irritated and nobody can really follow what happens. Shell game, I'm not sure if for the Germans it's Hütchenspiel, like when you have the nutshells and you have a ball underneath and you don't know really where it is, and you always get distracted and therefore you never know exactly where it is. And that's what we mean with a shell game for your marketing dollars. When the media agencies start with all their GRPs and net reach and all the values that they have for planning, and of course it's not all wrong, but often for clients it's really, really tough to follow the whole story, and therefore that's why we call it a shell game, where suddenly the cause and effect is not really transparent and can't be followed by the client in most cases. And so this is where we want to go in, and we want to create the transparency and also the knowledge. We want to create the knowledge about what really works and what doesn't. And with that shell game, and that's why they do it, actually at the end, it's not so easy to really follow the effect, and that's why the agencies always find good reasons, and because this is off records here, I can really talk about it in this corner, which is nice. So the main reason is because the whole marginal concept behind media agencies, of course, and that's been in the press enormously over the last months, is something that might bring the advertising dollar into the wrong direction, because it's not so much orientated in where is the best effect, but it's more about where's the best margin, and not only for the client, but also for the agency. And this is something, and that's the key reason why this is such a huge story in the, right now, Danish and German media market. That's where we are right now. We're just going US in the next couple of weeks, and then we try and do it even more international. So we want to end the shell game, and we want to bring the transparency into the planning. And actually, all of that money that is spent, and Wanamaker, he is the inventor of media and marketing as we know it now. Henry Ford was also quoted on that, but the first one who used the statement, half of my media money is wasted, I just don't know which half. I mean, that was okay 100 years ago when he said it, because there was a lot of belief on what works and what doesn't. But right now, with all the data we're having, I don't think it's really professional to still work on that basis and throw half the money out of the window. And maybe it's no longer half the money. Maybe it's not 50%. Maybe by now, with all the digital, and we can measure, and we have precise click tracking and data about customer journey. Maybe in the digital space, it's not 50%. Maybe it's only 20 to 30% that's thrown out of the window. But in the total media, that's again where we are not so far away from where we were 100 years ago. And that is just no longer acceptable, because there is big data and there are ways with artificial intelligence to really work on it and get more knowledge out of what's happening. But big data, and it was in the title, big is not everything. And we all know that, because the big data thing, there's huge amounts of data available everywhere, not only in digital, also about all the offline. But the sheer amount of data that we work with has no value at all in itself. It's just about what you do with it. It's about the knowledge that you create out of the data. And that's why we have built a platform where all the data gets into that platform, and that's what we work with then to really optimize the media, the planning itself. Because we then not only want to find out which half is kind of a waste of the budget, but we want to answer those questions that all the media planners and the marketing guys that we talk to that would like to have answered. One is, which factors do influence my sales? What is really the key driver of what I'm doing, of my business, of new clients, of revenue, whatever the KPI is. Sales doesn't have to be the KPI, but sales, very often, it is the KPI. And that's the first big surprise when we talk to the decision makers in media, and we've talked to quite a lot in the last few weeks, then often sales is not really what they are looking for. It's the classic media values. It's about net reach, it's about building awareness, it's about GRP and cost per GRP optimization. What we found out and what the data can tell us, that often cost per GRP and the sheer optimization on cheap reach is completely the wrong way of optimization, because at the end it doesn't help selling more, it doesn't help getting more clients, it doesn't help really achieve your business goals. And that's what each of those companies, and even the media planner, even the media decision maker, what they're there for. They're not there for buying net reach. They're there to make their company successful. So whatever the key KPI here is, that's what we want to find out, to really discover the key influencers or key influence on those KPIs. Then, of course, double click on that, on the whole environment. And that is not only media, of course. Within our clients, we can measure that between 2% of their sales or KPIs, from 2% up to 35%. That's the maximum effect of media they have. The rest is other factors. For example, take Coop. Coop is the retailer, biggest one in Denmark, working with us. And there it's less than 2% that the sales or the floor traffic is really driven by media. They can have an advert or not. It's the location, it's many other factors they are having that have a huge influence on whether the Coop is successful or not. So it's not only media, but we need to find out what are the key factors that drive it. And then what's the effect of paid media, of course, and within paid media, which channel has the most effect, which is most cost effective, and what drives my business the most. Out of that, we can then also discover what the ideal media mix looks like. Because when we have those cross-marketing effects, and we can, with all the data, we can identify which media works best in which combination, and we have a hierarchical effect, and you'll see a little more about that later on. Then we can, of course, really optimize on what the ideal budget split would be. So it's, and again, just because we're more print-orientated today in this building, that's exactly what I mentioned earlier. We see a lot of overspend on TV, for example, in many cases. I guess it's partly the business model that the agencies have behind it, as I mentioned also earlier. But for print, there's a huge opportunity because digital can prove what it does. In offline media, it was only TV that could prove what it does, because there's a timestamp for the airing of an advert on TV. So for clients, especially just take e-commerce clients and the growth of e-commerce clients on TV as TV advertisers, that has been hugely because every e-commerce company has the perception that they can measure the effect of TV on the web traffic, on conversion uplifts and so forth. With print, you don't have that advantage, or actually it's a disadvantage, because to prove what the midterm, long-term, maybe even short-term effect of print is, that's really, really difficult. But that's what we can do with this, by bringing in artificial intelligence. And then at the end, of course, when we have optimized the media mix, when we know what's the right allocation, what is the most effective mixture of those channels, and not only the channels, but also each single media, then we can also predict how many sales that will generate. And that's, of course, for clients, hugely convenient. How many media or marketing, heads of marketing sit together on a monthly basis. The general management gives them the order, like we need 5,000 new clients next month, or 5 million extra in revenue. And then they start discussing on how much budget they need and how to spend it and what the effects will be. And then the question comes back, and how many how much revenue can you generate if you have another million in budget, for example. And all of that is just, again, with Excel sheet, good gut feeling, and so everyone can make an educated guess on that. But it's not really precise, and often it doesn't hit the reality. And that's something, once you have your neural network and you have the data distribution and you have all the effects calculated in maths, so very precise, then that can be adopted, and you can then do your prediction of what comes out when you invest the money the way then the platform suggests. And also you can change, of course, the budgets, and you could say, for example, if you take 5 million euro as a budget for the next 3 months, and then the algorithm suggests to have a certain media mix with this budget split of 50% on TV, 50% on TV, 30% on print, and 20% on online. Let's just take it as anything, as a number. And then when you decide, no, but I would like to do some more on print and less on TV, for example, then you can clearly see the effect, and the platform will show you that you will either gain or lose new clients or revenue by doing that. So there's a full transparency on anything, on everything that you're doing. And how does that work? And now we're getting a little bit into data, but I'll keep that pretty top level. So the first thing is we need to consolidate all the data, and that's why we've built a data consolidation part and engine, which is in the platform, and that has APIs to all kinds of data delivery. And as I mentioned earlier, this is not only about the effect of media, we need to understand the whole economics, because a lot of our clients, there's a huge effect of unemployment rates to the sales level they can get. Because if there's more unemployment, of course, not as many people buy certain products. Others might be bought even more, like betting and other stuff that's happening. So we need unemployment rates, we need interest rates. We have, for Volkswagen, we have gas prices, for example, that run into the database on a daily basis, on a daily level. So that we have everything covered that could have an influence on those business KPIs of our clients. And then, so within that data consolidation, of course, we not only have macroeconomics, but it also goes into industry data, for example, for sports betting. Also, another client we have, there we need the sports events that take place. It's very natural that one of the key drivers for new clients for a sports betting company is not media, but it's sports events. If there's a Champions League soccer game, then there's a huge effect. If there's just table tennis somewhere in the world, then it's not as effective. And therefore, that has to be taken into the media planning so that you know when to book your campaign in combination with those events. And that's for the future also, as much as explanation of the history. So brand or industry events, like sports events for sports betting, those go into the database as well. Plus then, of course, more detailed media data. We have all from Nielsen, all from Ubiquity, to have also competitors' numbers. And so that's what's happening in the data consolidation part. So it's just stupid data gathered together, huge volume. That's big data. But then the business logic comes on top of that, plus the machine learning part. And that's where the machine just knows how the data is changing on a daily basis, and it starts to build up certain levels of knowledge, data knowledge, about how the data reacts for that specific client. So the machine learning is to really understand what is the, for example, cross-media effect for the client, but we also need the business logic behind it on to see how those KPIs perform, also cost-wise, and in the whole environment with all the constraints. And so there's certain limitations in that model. Of course, we all know that you can't book a campaign for 20 euros a day, for example. It doesn't work. You need restrictions on what's possible, what's not. You can't spend 10 million euro a day on print magazines in Germany, for example. It doesn't make sense. So there are those business constraints that we can fit into the model, and then there comes the Bayesian interference engine that puts the intelligence into that, and it's just a 2-hour session, an extra one, to really fully explain how that works, and we need one of my mathematicians to really jump into that in more depth. But the good thing about the Bayesian modeling that is behind all of what we do is that we can add expert knowledge to the data. So the data isn't lost by itself. We can always tell the machine, and we can tell the data what certain effects and constraints are, so that the results it delivers are even more precise and still are matched with human knowledge, and especially expert knowledge. And therefore, it just works better in an operational level also to create a media plan out of that data. This is what comes out. You can't see much here, I know, but this is the whole, or the basis of what we're doing, that we build a client's individual media formula. We find out how media works for one specific client. So there's no such the world formula that works for everyone, but it's very specific for each single client. And as a visual concept, this is one of the client's formulas, for example. In this case, it's for our first US client that we've just developed, and that's already also up and running. And there you have lots of data points, and you see this yellow core outside. That's all the macroeconomics, that's the environment that has an influence. And there you can also see the hierarchy of effects. So you have macroeconomics have an influence on all the media, for example. So TV, print, they work better or less good depending on employment rates, interest rates, so forth. And this is how it all goes together, and it's tied together, and this is how the platform and the algorithm then works and try to find out where the real effects are. We call it a neural network that then defines where the true effects are. And what's so fascinating, and that's exactly also, by the way, how the whole Google thing worked in the Go case. I guess most of you have read about it. Pretty famous, because nobody had thought that artificial intelligence and then the Google platform could beat the world champion Lee in a game of Go, which is very complex, multidimensional, but they have done that. And it's done kind of in a system like this, where then the neural network finds out where the real cause and effect are. There's one I had never expected I would need to read statistical magazines in my life, but I've just started with that, just to understand what the people in the office are talking about. And there's been a great example on how accurate those systems can identify cause and effect. There's, for example, Colgate, which is a, how you call it, Cookie Dent, sorry. It's Cookie Dent, and they have those for second teeth. Is it second teeth? I'm not sure about the word, but those artificial teeth that you have for cleaning. And they put it into a network like that, and they found out that there is a seasonality in their tablets, in those medicine, or those, in those tablets for cleaning false teeth. And they said it can't be, there is no seasonality. It's just ridiculous, it's false, there's wrong data somewhere. But the algorithm identified clearly there is a cause and effect of seasonality. And then they started digging deeper into that, and they had never thought about it within the company. And they found out that all the outdoor sports people that have their drinking bottles in the cellar over the winter, they take them out in spring, and they clean it with those things, because it's highly, well, it cleans really well. So there was a cause of spring for selling these products, which even the marketing, those that deal with the product on a daily basis, they didn't know. It was discovered by the algorithm. And so this is just to show you and give you an example on how smart, I mean, it's smart we can discuss on a philosophic level for hours, whether it's really smart, but it's very accurate and it can identify cause and effect purely out of data. And that's brand new. And that's also when you read about those systems and especially again coming a little bit back to the agencies, they say, we've been doing modeling for 20 years, it's nothing new, it's all, yeah, we know all that. It's simply wrong. It's a big lie, because that was not possible 20 years ago. That is possible for technically for about 2 years now. Before that, the calculation power you need to do that is so immense. What we do to find a model like that, we testify, it's a funny number, 10 in the square of 240. So 10 in the square, 10 hoch 240, I'm not sure for the, so 10 in the square of 240. That's a number with 240 zeros. The amount of water molecules in the ocean, just as an example, has just 46 zeros. It's just a small part of the number we're dealing with here. Just to give you a feeling of what's happening there. It's 10 in the square of 240 models that we simulate before we found out which one fits the reality best, because that's the idea. We need to try all those models, try with a lot of impact of print for the effect, for example, little impact on print, and all those values that we could enter into the formula, and that's what the machine does. And it's huge capacities of computers, of course, cloud services that do that simulation. And at the end, we find that formula which fits reality best. So this is just, that's what it's then all about. And this is the prediction part, which comes out of that, which is very relevant, just as a quick snapshot for you to have a feeling of what the business value can be for our clients, then with the prediction part. So in the platform, which is online, every client can use it on a daily basis. What I mentioned earlier, they can have a campaign name, they can have their target KPI, which they would use. It's a very simple interface. Then they enter the budget. So, and with the budget and the timing when the budget will be spent, and actually this is kind of the old screen. We have a newer one which has a lot more fancy functionalities, but it's nothing for the big audience, I would say. But this is kind of the simple one where clients usually would discuss hours at least, if not weeks. Here they get, with that budget spent in that period of time, their ideal media mix. Plus, you would see here for those $1 million they would get 1,247 transactions, which has a CPO of 788, and so forth. You get very simply, very easily, you get those numbers, and you can see what will happen in the upcoming campaign. And that, we always control the outcome of those predictions with reality to see how accurate the model works, and in an up and running model, and there of course you see also when this will happen, when you will get the transactions, plus you have a secondary KPI, which is the revenue. Also you will exactly see what's happening. And the accuracy of that model is up to 95%. So in this case, up to 95% of, for example, those 1,274 transactions will be met by 95%. Of course, we can't be 100%. 100% is a lucky shot because there's a lot of estimates that we need for the future. For example, we need to take estimates about the economic development in the future, the weather that will be during that campaign period. We need to just have a prior on the competitors' activities. All of that, we don't know exactly. That's why our prediction cannot be 100% accurate. But because those don't vary too much, that's why the predictions are so accurate, because it's just the mistakes that we do in estimating those things that we can't know, like, for example, especially competitors' activities. But, and as I mentioned earlier with the Bayesian model, even when someone knows that the competition will start double the size of the campaign because there's a new market player entering the market, then we can take that into the model, and then it will predict even more accurate because we know that there will be a change in the budget spent also for also for the competition. Then in the reporting part, this is more on the historic level. You can see what happened, and one on total effects, and one also, and here, yeah, it's a little fast, but it's just to give you a glimpse into what this looks like. But here you will also see on a historic level, always from the last day, so yesterday is in the database, you will see why you had these and that many sales or didn't have the ones that you thought you would have. Because, for example, the weather was not as good, the weather was too good, the competitors' activities were more than we expected and so forth. So you have 100% transparency of all the effects that are calculated within the algorithm and within the machine. So that's also very important to have all that data available and have that full transparency for the clients. This is the OODA loop, which comes from military strategy on how to gain advantages, is developed in the middle of 20th century in order to gain advantage time-wise. And this is what's behind that and why this is important. Because you could also say, yeah, well, but why do you need to have that as a part of a platform and in a machine and automized? That's because what we do is we do the data collection, as mentioned earlier. That data collection then kind of observes, puts it into the artificial intelligence, tries to find out where are the real effects. Then it does the simulations, which helps us decide. And then we do the programming, not only in programmatic, but that's also for you important. We do all the programmatic buying directly out of the machine. That comes from the machine, from the algorithm, there comes the budget allocation, and that goes into programmatic buying straight away. We are already talking to sales houses from the TV business, where we would like, and that's also why we're here, to talk more with the print business to get a more automated connection with the booking systems. Because for us, time is crucial. Time is the success factor, not only in programmatic buying. There it's easy, and it's not only time, it's more the smartness of why you do what exactly. But also for print and for TV and all offline media and out of home, we have it partly already with digital out of home. For us, it helps a lot, and the ideal case is also that we have booking access from the platform into the buying part. So not for the online, that's okay, that exists in most cases already. But if we can be faster in also booking print ads and all other forms of media, then that helps a lot. And it creates the competitive advantage for our clients, because as soon as we are faster in the booking and we are always ahead in the circle of the competition, then we will always be one step ahead in taking the right decision and make the competition act on what we've been doing and not vice versa. Yeah, so what's most important for us is that we put the KPIs of our clients in the center of that intelligence machine, which at the end does three things. We have fully data-driven media approach, so it's going far away from Excel sheets and a gut feeling on where to allocate the budgets, which also preserves you from spending budget where you have the biggest margins. So it's purely data-driven. Plus it's fully transparent. You will see what exactly is happening and why it happened. And then the third step is also you have the fully automated. So those three parts are what really drive your KPIs, and therefore this is the core value of the platform that is possible today, and where not your KPIs are struggling between all those marginal discussions and everything else that's taking part in the industry, and which doesn't help you achieve your goals. Yeah, and this is what we try to avoid, because mentioned earlier, Wanamaker, 50% of the budget goes out of the window. I just don't know which half. This is where we think, with all the technical possibilities that we're having today, it's simply not professional to work that way. And that's why there are tools and why we developed something that helps not to burn the budget. Because burning the budget is simply not something that your shareholders will value for a long time. So honesty, transparency, and effectiveness, those are the new rules for us in the media industry and media planning. and therefore I think there's good times to come, and I'm very happy that we could already convince a huge client, and maybe especially German clients. In Denmark it was a lot easier convincing clients than in Germany. I guess the German clients are not the most maybe dynamic and adopting completely new ideas. But now as we have managed to convince even Volkswagen to run with that model for the next couple months, that's something that helps us a lot in gaining credibility, but also in improving the power of what's in that big data and artificial intelligence. So thank you very much. These were my couple minutes, and
we've got a microphone here, so if you'd like to ask a burning question, by all means, please do so.
Hi, this is Srini from Vikatan, India, and it's like a kind of dream come true for print publishers, okay, what you're talking about. The only thing which I would like you to elucidate is what part of the ecosystem needs to come together in order for you to be able to put these aspects of data in place. For example, who comes first? Does it have to be the advertiser, the client? Does it have to be the publishers in general? Or does it have to be, who drives this change? And how is this, because I'm telling you, in India, I guess just like anywhere in the world, basically the ad agency wants to spend money where he can put it away easily and he can get his ROI, right? So I think you said that too. This is not untrue anywhere. So in print, generally, since budgets are coming down, print is not being considered. I think print budgets are coming down because of this very fact, because it's easy to spend on TV and get away with it. So I'm sorry, I may be complicating the question, but simple question is, if this ecosystem were to evolve in a country like ours, so where do you think the whole process should start? Who should be the stakeholders who have to be part of it? And what kind of commitments do they need to make in order to make it work?
Thank you very much for that question. It comes very much from the client side. The only one that can really, the only one that can really support it, and we need access from the clients because we need the clients' data. We need their KPI achievements in order to make the model learn how it works and then to distribute the budget. So maybe I didn't mention that earlier. We start with a 3-year history of clients' data to create the formula and the model for that specific client. So without the clients, it will never work. But then, of course, we need also all kind of media where we can then connect our bookings to. But actually, and that's the way we do it in Germany right now, we're not fully connected and automated in the booking process. This is something that comes next step. We are fully automated in the digital space, but in the offline world, we still need the normal booking system. So we have access then to all the booking systems that you would have, and you do kind of copy-paste into those. So it's not so much critical on the supplier side, it's more on the client side.
Any more questions?
How do you get all the data in? Is it data entry or is it automated? How does it work?
Yeah, it's automated, and we get it in on a daily basis with APIs that we build into the client's databases, into SAP systems, we have standard APIs for many systems like Google Analytics, for example, but also delivering the sales from the client side. That's something where we often need to build into individual technology for each specific client.
Also, the question on the getting the data. What kind of data do you ask the print publishers to get in order to build your system? Classical media, not only print. It's out of home. It's the same. So, what kind of data you ask the publisher to get to?
That's usually the spend levels that we get from the client. The clients usually they know how much they've spent with each of those publishers. And that's where we get the data from. We don't need the net reach, for example. We don't need that because we just look at the budget spent and combine the budget spent with the sales effect. Whether it was read with 100,000 people or 200, for us, the system will find out what the effect of those readers will be. So we don't care about the statistics on how many magazines were published, for example. We can bring together the spend level and the effect.
So you don't analyze the social demographic of the magazine, of the media.
Thank you very much. Very good point. Yes, we do have in the historic spend level of the clients, where we start with a 3 years history of what they've done. That's where the target group is represented in the whole model, because the historic media planning usually starts with the target groups and the spend level on those target groups. So that is partly integrated into the whole concept. But when we do then the analysis, what works best and what works at which level, there, the reach and those statistics is no longer that important, because there we calculate like the target group would stay stable.
Right, and the last question on there.
You were talking about collecting data from your clients, and you were talking about a 95% accuracy of your model. And I'm wondering, like, in which way the goodness of data, because I guess different clients can supply a different amount of data and a different goodness of data. So how does that interfere with the like standard deviation of your model?
Yeah, very good question. Actually, the 95% accuracy is, first of all, we need high impact of media on the sales anyway. Otherwise, if there is more effect of weather and events, then of course there's a higher risk that there will be other factors driving the success, and therefore it can't be that accurate, because we can't predict the weather and socioeconomics or the economic, macroeconomic factors that well. So that's one thing, but also we need the right data points from the clients, absolutely. And there it gets more and more complex. We're talking to FMCG clients right now, for example, where we of course have a strong effect of distribution, where we need to know how well they're listed, whether they have a special listing somewhere next to the, how you call it, the POS placements, or where they are placed in the shelves. So all of those sales drivers, we need extra data on. So that's what we're working on, and that's where we're controlling the model and each specific client's model on a daily basis, whether the predictions are accurate enough or whether we have maybe some lacking data. And that's exactly what the point where we then dive deeper into the client and look for other effects that could help us predict even better. Because if we're below, even 70% is not a bad value for a prediction, but if we have no client where we are below 70 or 75, I think something around 80 are the normal cases where we start with, and then it takes a while until we get better and better. So the 95 is after about a year. That's when we are really that accurate, because we've discovered all the missing data in case there was missing data in the beginning. But that's what we start with in the very early days with each single client, where we try and find out whether the prediction accuracy is good enough. And if not, we need extra data.
Andreas, you're staying for the rest of the summit?
Yes.
So if you'd like to catch up with Andreas, please do get a hold of him during the networking breaks. And please give him a round of applause. This was fascinating.
Thank you very much.